Finally tonight to presidential politics here at home, and one group's effort to upend the way candidates for the Oval Office are nominated. Judy Woodruff brings us the latest attempt to push America away from the dominant two-party system.
No third-party candidate has won a U.S. presidential election since 1860. But with unemployment staying high, worries about another recession, and mounting public disapproval of Democrats and Republicans alike, could voters be frustrated enough with Washington to upend the way they select their president in 2012? Well, one new group thinks so. Americans Elect is a nonprofit organization that wants to change the nominating process by holding the first ever nonpartisan political convention in cyberspace. Voters can weigh in on their top issues and use an online voting system to nominate a candidate to place on the presidential ballot in all 50 states. Well, for more on the effort, we're joined now by Elliot Ackerman. He's Chief Operating Officer for Americans Elect and a decorated veteran of both the Afghanistan and Iraq wars, and former Clinton advisor and Democratic pollster Douglas Schoen. He sits on the group's board of advisors, and it's great to have you both with us.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much for asking.
Elliot Ackerman, to you first. Our political parties have been around since the birth of the country, practically. We have a stable system of government. Why circumvent them?
Well, I think what's important to realize is this isn't another political party. This isn't a third party. This is a second nominating process. And the vision here is that in November of 2012, when American voters go to the poll, there'll be a third ticket that they've directly nominated themselves. So at Americans Elect, we'll be holding the first ever nonpartisan online nominating convention. Any registered voter can be a delegate to that convention, and the ticket that comes out of the convention is going to be on the ballot in all 50 states.
So, Doug Schoen, it's not a third party,
No.
You're saying, but it's a process that would circumvent the party. What is it about the two political parties that makes you think you can get around them?
Well, if you look at the polls, Judy, you see that there are record levels of disapproval with both parties, with Congress, with institutions generally. And what we've seen in our research is that solid majorities of the American people support the idea of an online nominating convention and support the idea of offering people a choice and to give them a voice.
So, Elliot Ackerman, how would it work? I mean, how do you nominate somebody online? How does that work?
All right, well, what we're seeing here is there's the obvious technological innovations that are occurring with the website. But there's also a real political innovation that's occurring. And this is the first time there'll be 50 state ballot access for a ticket to be directly nominated by the American people. So when you come to AmericansElect.org and become a delegate, you'll be interacting in a process that's flattening our political system. And we're taking what have traditionally been the functions of the parties, and we're making them the functions of the delegates. So as a delegate, you can draft a candidate, you can help develop a platform of questions the candidates have to answer, and you can also be involved with the discussion debates surrounding the rules of the convention. So ultimately taking party functions and making them delegate functions.
And you're collecting signatures, Doug Schoen, in all 50 states
Right.
in order to get on the ballot. How is that going?
Well, it's
so
going
far?
extremely well. I can tell you that there are, I think, 21 states that we're going to work on this year. 29 allow us to work next year, but we've gotten 1.6 million in California. We are getting record levels of response from people who are just fed up, Judy, with the two parties.
Now, I read that you are having to pay people to collect signatures. Is that the case, and if so, why?
Well, that's the way these things have been done for years, but let's, to focus specifically on how people are coming out, what's going on in California. The people of California have shown up in record numbers for this. So to give you a sense of it, the 1.6 million signatures that have been gathered in California, that's basically 10% of the individuals who participated in the last gubernatorial race. It makes it the largest signature gathering initiative in the history of that state, and we believe, from all indications, the history of the country. So this can't be done unless the people of California want it to be done, and we're seeing a huge appetite for this nationwide.
Are you getting a sense, Doug Schoen, of what it is that people want from the candidate that might come out of this process?
They want a number of things. First, they want compromise and conciliation. They're fed up and frustrated with a partisan divisiveness that they don't understand and they feel isn't addressing their problems. Second, they want a process that involves them in picking a president that's not really controlled by political leaders or political bosses. And third, they want to understand that the duopoly that the two major parties have had over the system, what you called in your introduction, quite rightly, the stability of the system is shaken up because it's not solving our problems and it's not addressing the needs that people feel.
I've been doing some reading about what you're doing. There's some suspicion out there that this is a stalking horse for a particular candidate. How do you guarantee to people watching this, reading about this, that you don't have a particular candidate in mind, that this is truly open?
Americans Elect is about doing two things. It's about providing ballot access for a ticket to be directly nominated by the American people. That's all that's going on here. We need people to get involved. Becoming a delegate Americans Elect is a serious endeavor. When we have the President of the United States himself saying our politics is dysfunctional, the genius of our country is the fact that the last self-correcting measure we have is the American people. And Americans Elect, the spirit of Americans Elect, is to give the people the power to self-correct our politics.
And in terms of doing this online, your convention would be in cyberspace, in effect.
That's right. And you know, we've polled it, and about 25 to 30% of the potential eligibles have said they're interested in the process. They want to learn more about it. They want to communicate. They want to share their preferences on issues because, as I think Elliot was beginning to say, we give, through Americans Elect, the chance for people to be heard what their issue preferences are so that an online platform can be developed. And ultimately, people will have a chance to participate in a convention.
One other thing I've read by way of criticism is that you have not yet revealed who your funders are. Is that correct? And if so, why not?
Well, the choice of all of our funders is on them to donate or to disclose, and we hope that all of them will. And the vision is that Americans Elect will be wholly funded by small donations online. And let's talk about what they're funding. They're funding ballot access in all 50 states and the infrastructure by way of a website for the American people to be able to come and make this thing their own. We need the American people to join Americans Elect and have their voice be heard.
So that's something you intend to do.
Right, it is. And the other thing is there's no special interest here. This is a process that opens up the process. The delegates will determine the platform and who the nominee is. So anyone who's supporting the organization is supporting openness, not a special interest, not a candidate, or not a cause.
What happens now? I mean, you're out in all 50 states, is that right now, trying to get on the ballot?
No, the ballot access laws in this country, and in many ways, they restrict us, as Doug mentioned.
You can't start until a certain date.
And they're somewhat random. In 29 states, we have to circulate in 2011, and in the other states, we can't circulate into 2012. We're going as fast as we can possibly go with achieving ballot access, and we're seeing folks come out in large numbers for it. So those operations are going on right now.
And looking into the fall in the next couple of months, Doug Schoen, what will be a public indication of how well you're doing? I mean, will you be revealing how many people have signed the petition or what?
Well, we're getting a phenomenal number of hits and expressions of interest on the website. This is really just starting. I think we've been gratified since we began communicating publicly about what we're doing with the really tens of thousands of people who've registered interest. What we're really doing, Judy, is going on programs like this, talking to the American people in open meetings and private discussions to share what we're doing, why we're doing it, and to make it clear that there is a different way and an alternative approach to nominating and electing a president.
Well, we are delighted to have you both, and we'll be watching your progress as the weeks and months go by.
Thanks so much for having us.
Elliot Ackerman, thank you both.
Thank you, Judy.